Hey, you're listening to Blindsight. Let's go. Mental health isn't something to take lightly. It's time to fight. It's time to thrive. Let's do this.
Welcome to Blindsight. This is Bill Lundgren, your host, and I'm glad to have you on board. Especially glad to have our guest on, Samantha King, who is also a counselor and has had a experience and want to encourage other therapists to get some training in working with low vision clients. And those of us who low vision or blind find very few people out there who know the first thing about what life is with us. So, Samantha, thank you for coming on board.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Great. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in working with low vision and blind clients?
Absolutely. So, clinically, I am a licensed clinical social worker. So, when you go and get your master's degree in social work, after you complete school, you have to intern for 2 years for about 2,000 hours, depending on the state that you're in. And when I graduated and began my clinical hours to gain licensure, I ended up getting a job at the Tampa Lighthouse for the Blind in Tampa, Florida. And it was truly completely random. I was looking for social work jobs in many different fields. And I ended up working with the low vision community, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And since then, I'm in private practice, but I still love to work with the low vision community.
You know, sometimes I think that things don't happen by chance, that the right person gets put in the right place and
Yes,
finds their calling. Yeah. Hmm.
absolutely.
So you're based in Florida, you're based in Colorado.
Yeah,
Where are you
a
based?
little bit of both. I'm born and raised in Florida, moved out to Colorado for a few years. And then I moved back to Florida to have babies, and this is home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I am licensed as a social worker in both states, and a lot of my practice is online. So I have a lot of clients in Colorado and Florida.
Great. Uh, how do you see working with low vision clients different from those who don't have a vision issue?
Well, I think I might turn that question upside down on its head and say that oftentimes it's the same. We're just
Yeah.
people with vision loss or people with different life experiences. We're all the same. We're all humans. We all have relationships, lack thereof, difficulties, great things. We're all humans. So a lot of the times, Bill, I think it's the same. But to turn your question back around, I do think that it's different because there is often a big focus on grief for the
Right.
loss of vision, whether it be being born with a disease or having it happen, losing vision later in life. I think that a big portion of sessions with people with low vision is talking about that grief and loss and how it affects their life.
Well, I guess you've heard people say, "Oh, you're depressed because you're blind."
Definitely. And if you mean I've heard that, I have heard that from clients that people say that to them.
Yes.
Yep. So I'm assuming you've heard that too.
Oh, of course. And in
Mhm.
fact, one of the difficulties for me as a blind therapist, now I started my practice as my vision was deteriorating, and
Mhm.
finally I had to get a dog, and
Mhm.
the clients fell in love with the dog instead of me. As we all know, that
Yeah,
happened.
that's
Uh,
true. Mhm.
And then I became a total.
Hmm.
And a lot of times when they come in, I don't even tell them. Got a dog. The dog runs
Yeah.
out in the waiting room and brings him into the office, and then looks to me for a treat before he sits down.
Hmm.
Uh, but then after a few minutes, we're talking, and somebody might say, "You're blind, aren't you?" And I sort of look around the room and say, "Yeah, I think I am." And of course, that throws them off. And I feeling my job is to see me as a therapist rather than as a blind therapist. And it usually works because we're right into dealing with their issue
Hmm.
rather than my issue.
Absolutely. That's why we're there.
Yeah. But I know that it's uncomfortable, and it's interesting that a lot of low vision people find out that I am a therapist, but they want to go to a sighted person because obviously this sighted therapist is a better therapist in their mind. So there's a prejudice.
A
Yeah,
prejudice
there's a
against their
prejudice.
own.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And so it's a prejudice on both sides. The question is, how do you get around it? And how do you get people to move off of, or how do you get them to explore the that the issues they're bringing to you are not having to do with blindness or blindness in the context as you're suggesting, grief and loss, and that's part of the issue, but that's not all.
Mhm. Well, I I think it can go a, a few different ways because Bill, I've had the opposite experience where people with low vision come to me and they learn that I'm sighted and they would prefer a person with vision loss.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had a different experience with that. And then I also have seen clients that were once sighted, that maybe progressively lost their vision, and they would like to see a sighted person. But
Yeah,
I mean, you must have had quite the experience seeing clients who were both visually impaired and not, and having biases against someone with low vision while you have low vision yourself.
right.
That's tremendous because I mean, that is truly unbelievable because when I worked at the Lighthouse, one of the first things I did as the social worker was tell my clients, you can do anything besides fly a plane, basically. You can do it all. And that was part of our job was job rehabilitation
Right. Mm-hmm.
and telling them that they can do anything. And therapists would probably be on the top of my list. Your sight has
Right.
nothing to do with your education. You read just as much as I do. You have just as much of a qualification as I do.
Well, there is that prejudice we have to get past, but the thing when you talk about going for grief, when do you? Is it often the first thing that comes up, or is maybe they say there's no problem. I have no problem with my loss of vision. This is what I'm coming to you for.
Hmm. Well, I always like to begin with why are you here?
Mm-hmm.
And if they're expressing to me that they're here because of their vision loss, then we do usually dive into how did it happen and how are you feeling about it? And more times than not, grief is a big part of the emotional experience for them. But if a
Mm-hmm.
client
Mm-hmm.
comes to me with low vision, and especially someone who has been in therapy before or who has high emotional intelligence and connection to themselves, and they just want someone who has an understanding of what it is like to live in a low vision world, and they want to talk to me about their marriage or their job or their children, then that also can make them feel comfortable because maybe we're not talking about the grief and loss of their vision, but I can just understand what their life is like and we get into the other things. We're talking about everything else that's happening in a human's life, whether they have vision loss or not.
And oftentimes that has nothing to do with their blindness, and that's the
Absolutely.
connection that we have to make. Look, it doesn't necessarily mean because you're blind, but it might be a reaction. Like many of us are people with any physical disability may get into perfectionism, and which can make life because they're trying to prove better than somebody else. So that's kind of the thing that the client may be bringing to you, and anybody who's listening who you know it's good to have. It's not a question of having sight or not having sight. It's knowing what to deal with when you're working with somebody who's blindness or low vision. That's the important thing, the expertise which you bring with your work at the Lighthouse and what you
Mhm.
bring, and plus your enthusiasm for working in this population.
Absolutely. I think it's a very underserved population in terms
Yep.
of mental health. I was absolutely flabbergasted at the lack of resources that people who are losing their vision, the lack of resources that they have from their doctors or whoever is
Yeah.
giving them their diagnosis. Basically, you're losing your vision, good luck.
Yeah.
And
It's like
yeah.
when I was identified, a friend of mine, had gotten me a referral. Some
Hmm.
friends of his were ophthalmologists. I did all the tests and so forth, and
Hmm.
they came to him. These are the professionals. Came to him and said, "Don't tell him he's going to lose his sight." And fortunately,
Wow.
yeah, and fortunately, my friend said, "No, I have to tell him." But that's the way. And which brings me to the issue that we are wanting to talk about, which is anger.
Mhm.
And how do you define anger?
Hmm. Well, I think anger can mean different things to different people, of course. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
talking to me as a therapist, I would say that it's an individualistic reaction to an experience. And
Mm-hmm.
you feel it in your body. Oftentimes, it feels like you're going to explode, or you feel dysregulated. You feel agitated, like you have an energy inside of you that you don't like, that you want to get rid of. It's your mind's reaction to an experience that is unwelcomed.
Hmm. Have you had, what we had decided to do was a series of mad, glad, sad, and scared because, and it came out of my own experience where I find that you describe some people having feelings that they label anger, but there are a lot of people that I came across who, they were taught not to feel angry, or they block it in some way because it's not acceptable. And so
Yes,
part of our job, even to say we're angry because we can't see, that it's neither right nor wrong. It's how we deal with it. And as you say, that explosive feeling, if somebody has that, they're well on the road of getting better, I think, because at least they're identifying what they're feeling, correct?
absolutely, Bill. Human emotions are meant to be expressed. And anger doesn't even really explain what someone is feeling. When you asked
Mm-hmm.
me to explain anger, my quick reaction was to almost use different vocabulary,
Right.
to use something else to define it so we can have some understanding of what it's like. Because anger, in that triangle of mad, sad, glad, anger has so many different meanings. Do we
Mm-hmm.
feel disgusted? Do we feel enraged? Do we feel threatened, hurt? There's different, so much different vocabulary that you could use that could
Right.
explain it. If someone says to you, Bill, I'm angry, or if someone says to you, Bill, I'm hurt, do those feel different to you?
Yeah, they would feel different to me.
Yeah. If I said, Bill, I feel threatened, would that feel different to you?
Yeah, they would.
Where anger is almost this umbrella term for 100 different ways that you feel.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the reasons as a therapist that I try to get people to be very specific in their feelings because it's so different, exactly for what you're pointing out. It's kind of different. There's so many words for it. And sometimes the meaning of it becomes blurred.
Absolutely. And this is why it's important to have that language because we can't regulate or manage our emotions if we are not explaining them productively.
Well, I'm talking to a woman, and I know that there seems to be, or maybe you feel differently, a gender difference in terms of any expression of anger.
Well, yes, there absolutely is.
I worked when I was in marketing, my first career, had one female supervisor and all the rest were male. If the male blew up and made all kinds of noise and so forth, that was acceptable.
Yep,
But for the one female supervisor to act that way, they'd use all kinds of language behind her back about what kind of a person she is.
absolutely. That's
And
the sexist part of our world. And anger, how is it appropriate that if I'm angry and I stomp my feet and walk away, someone's going to talk poorly about me stomping my feet? Where if it's a
right,
man, they say, oh, he's just being a guy.
yeah, exactly.
Unfair.
This minute, a lot of it's also driven by the family because in my family, we weren't allowed to be angry.
So, what did you have to be instead, Bill?
What I had to swallow it, or one of the adults would say, "Oh, you're not angry. You're sad because of X, Y, Z," and
Dismissive.
so it gets deflected.
Hmm.
And so I think that's one of the reasons I became a therapist because I had very confusing message in my family about emotion.
You probably needed that validation
Yeah,
when you're
and
a
for me,
child. Anger,
yes,
anger is an action emotion. We want to do something when there's anger in the room. And
right,
it can look like irritation or fury or rage. But when you're a child and you don't get what you want or you don't have your desired outcome, the normal reaction to have is anger.
right,
When you lose, you're playing a sport or you lose, or your sibling takes your toy, you feel anger. Our nervous
absolutely.
system is a wreck. And for someone to tell anyone else what they can or cannot feel is completely wrong.
But so many people come in with that uh, blurred understanding of our feelings. All those feelings are neither bad nor good.
Mhm.
They're just feelings that we have, and it's how we utilize it that makes a difference.
Yes.
But as a child doesn't have the tools yet to be able to say, I'm angry about something. They just explode.
I have a 2-year old, and when she gets upset that she can't have the snack before dinner, or her brother is playing with a toy that she wants, I'm already teaching her when she starts to cry or become upset. I'm already teaching her language for her emotions. And
Good.
I look at her and I say, I'm mad, mommy. And I kind of uh, emulate an angry stance and I have her mimic me. I'm mad, mommy. And I'm having her say that because I want her to be able to have language for the emotions because that normalizes it.
Yep. Yep.
We have to let it out.
Right. But at the same time, speaking from a blindness perspective, we may get very afraid of expressing anger because we can't see if somebody body reaction to our anger, and we're told, that we may get into trouble, so we have to mute that.
So, Bill, what do you think is the best way for a person with low vision to express their anger in a way that feels safe?
To accept as a valid feeling that you're angry. But that doesn't mean that you have to go hit somebody or do some extreme behavior, but just simply to be able to say, I'm really angry that such and such happened.
Yes.
And you don't have to, people around anger sometimes have on and off switch. They believe it's an on. Either you don't show it at all, or all of a sudden you have a big explosion.
I wish that we could explain to people, and I hope everyone listening can understand that there is a huge range within anger. Anger can mean 20 different things, and we can deal with it 20 different ways. When you're in the low vision community, it might not feel safe to stomp away, or you might be
Mm-hmm.
expressing your anger to your partner and you can't see their reaction if they have anger
Right,
as well. So, in the low
right,
vision
right.
community, I would tell people to learn the cues of your body and your mind for when anger is arising, and then
Mm-hmm.
decide what is your best coping mechanism for anger or whatever other emotion you're feeling. What is your best coping mechanism? And a, I'll tell you a few of my clients' coping mechanisms. It is to name the emotion and walk away. They're talking to their partner and they say, honey, I'm feeling angry. I'm going to walk away and go do X, Y, and Z for about 30 minutes or an hour. I need to come back to this conversation. It's
There you
walk,
go.
yeah, it's walking away. It's listening to music. It's going for a walk, going and sitting with their guide dog in their favorite room. It's going and taking a shower. It's doing something, and every person is different, but it is doing something to allow the emotion to be within you, but not let it take over and do anything bad.
Or do anything that would have negative consequences, but to make the point. And this is the thing, that on or off switch that we sometimes are raised with. And one of the side benefits of having a guide dog is the training to understand when a dog makes a mistake, you don't yank the collar. You
Yes.
give them a couple taps that no, and continue to do the behavior, you kind of up the ante. That is, you may pull the leash longer. And the ultimate is when they're really refusing to obey you, then you move the collar up to a point where you let them know that you mean business. But it's a graduated step. And most dogs, more than humans, know that, it isn't on or off. If we can, as you say, walk away or say, I'm angry, and walk away and do something, and the person persists, then you can be firmer, but you don't need to go to violence. And that's what most people associate, I think, associate anger with violence. Is that your sense as well?
I think anger has a very bad reputation. You know, you hear the term anger management can be thrown out there, or he's just an angry old man. You know, you
Yeah,
hear, you
right.
hear that anger word with a negative connotation all of the time. So I think it gets a bad rap. But in the research and in my experience, anger is an emotion that we feel when something gets in the way of a desired outcome. That happens to every person every day. Even small things can make us angry. Anger
Mm-hmm.
is a regular emotion. What we do with the anger is the problem, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling anger inside when something happens in a way that you didn't want it to happen is normal. Dealing with it in an unhealthy way, that is the problem. Anger does not have to equal aggression.
We come back to the question about body language. You know, some people with low vision or no vision, myself included, get a little hesitant in terms of what level of anger I'm allow myself to be,
Mhm.
because the person I may be talking to may be 250 pounds and of sheer muscle. I'm
Yep.
going to be a little more respect, but I don't know because I can't see uh, what they are and what their reaction is to my saying that I'm angry.
I definitely have heard this story a few times from clients that one of the most difficult parts about expressing emotion to people is that they can't understand someone's reaction unless it is spoken.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can't see, first of all, what that person looks like. So if you're angry with somebody while you're waiting in line at the DMV, if
Yeah.
you're, if you're mad at someone in a grocery store, you have no idea who you're dealing with. So that can be extremely scary for
Ni-
people.
97-pound weakling versus a
Yeah.
250-pound sumo wrestler. Yes.
You have no idea. And then also, it can be just as scary talking to someone's wife or husband or brother or sister. You're expressing your anger and you have no idea how they're reacting. Have they walked away?
Right.
Are they crying? Do they feel shame? Are they cowering? Are they sulking? You have no idea. So if you keep expressing your anger and you have no idea someone's reaction, you can't predict the next step
Right.
like a sighted
Right.
person would. And of course, that can be extremely difficult. So some of the
Mm-hmm.
work I do in that is helping my clients to get clear on what it is that they need from the person they're communicating with.
Okay.
So if they're talking to their brother and they're looking for a conversation to go a certain way and they cannot see their brother, they are responsible for expressing to their brother just that. Hey, I'm going to tell you how I feel. I can't see your reaction. So, can you tell me what your reaction is? Can we talk about what's going on in the room? What are you feeling, brother? Are you feeling upset like me? Do you feel like you want to cry over this? Do you feel angry? And that goes vice versa too, Bill. I know we're talking about anger today, but just for those listening, know that the same is true for my low vision clients who are feeling happiness and they're not sure, how
Right.
happy their partner is. Say, how are you
Right.
feeling? Are you
Right.
feeling elated? Are you feeling excited? Are you nervous? How are you feeling? So to bring it back to anger, ask the people that you're with, what's going on in the room right now?
I think that's an important tip that you're providing our audience. And I'm thinking, even the sighted people are really trained in that. Even if you can see them, that's a perfectly valid question to ask, because we tend to go right into the subject and tear each other apart. But what you're saying, communicate with the person and ask them to communicate with you as part of a way to deal with your anger.
You have
That's
to
a good point.
communicate. Thank you, Bill. You have to communicate about your communication.
Mm-hmm.
What is going on in the room?
Do you have some other tips for people in this
Hmm.
kind of situation we're talking about?
Well, first of all, I think if you are having difficulty navigating your own emotions or your loved one's emotions, I want people to know that they're not alone. And chances are everyone else listening to this also has felt this same way. And I want people to know that there are things that they can learn. One of my favorite
Hmm.
sayings, one of my favorite sayings is, you don't know what you don't know. And when people come to therapy and I show them new ways to be productive with your emotions, to be responsible for your emotions, for understanding emotional reactions and taking accountability, I watch people's lives transform. And so, for anyone who hasn't been in therapy, just know that if something's not working for you in your communication and in your life and in your dealing with your emotions, there are therapists out there who can teach you and show you new ways of being. So, I want people to know that.
Mm-hmm. And to be open to
Yes,
change
yes, yes. Know that it's out there and know that it's possible and be open to it.
and be open to it. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, so to answer your question in a more direct way, what other tips do I have? When you feel any emotion, I would want you to really connect with yourself on what emotion that you do feel. And a lot of times people can't name emotions. They'll name
Yeah.
mad, sad, happy. But I want
Mm-hmm.
everyone to look up the emotions wheel. And it's this image that if you imagine a wheel shape, a big circle shape, and inside of it, in the middle of it, is all the core emotions, that happy, mad, sad. And on the outside of the wheel are the 100 different words that go under the core emotions. And I want people to be able to express their real emotion rather than just mad, sad, happy. Because when
I
you
agree.
yeah, because when you express that language shows us that there's more to the experience than just that word. And when you
Right.
express to someone how you're feeling with better language, there's more of a chance in connection.
But I think starting with the core, and I know a lot of clients I've worked with, have trouble even identifying with any of the core. They use some word that confuses people about
Mhm.
what they're really feeling. And so that's one of the reasons I give them the assignment of for a while, stop for a minute and say, what are you feeling? And using just those 4 words. Once they're clear in themselves, then they can use all the other words to more clearly define, but at least for them to identify within their own feeling. Because I'm amazed at people out there who absolutely have no idea what they're feeling or afraid to identify what they're feeling.
Absolutely. Emotions also get a bad rap, especially people who have had parents or grew up learning that feelings aren't real or they're totally controllable or you can turn them on or turn them off or
Right, right,
that's not a
right.
good emotion. So we don't feel that in this house. That is quite literally the opposite. We are
Mm-hmm.
feeling human beings. Bill, you know this from being a counselor, but every single experience that a human has comes through feelings.
Right.
For someone to
Right.
deny having emotions is really one of those pet peeves that I will never get over, because that is not true. We are feeling beings. We feel before we think. Every
Right.
decision we make is through a feeling. So I agree with you that people need to know the core emotions, but I would absolutely make them take the next step to be able to
Mm-hmm.
express that emotion with more language. Because
More
if I
appropriate language. Mm-hmm.
Yes, because if I tell you I'm happy, you have no idea if I am optimistic or proud of myself or joyful or I'm looking forward to something. If I just say, "Oh, I'm happy today," you have no idea how I really feel.
Right.
That diminishes it. Happy doesn't describe it. Happy doesn't describe it
So,
at all.
and you see, part of the job as a therapist to help our client understand, and maybe even, I know in my family, to undo some of the family messages around emotion and allow uh, our client to feel and know what to do when they feel a certain emotion, and in a sense, not control it as much as manage it. What I
Absolutely.
use, manage. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't control all of our emotions. But
We shouldn't.
what helps us manage our emotions, as you put it, is our emotional granularity. As
Mm-hmm.
soon as you are able to accurately label your emotions and you have that emotional granularity, you are now able to distinguish between a whole range of emotions. You're able to distinguish that, and it gives the people that you're communicating with a chance to understand. Because as I talk to people in the low vision community, what helps them understand what's going on around them is language. There are a lot of things that people in the low vision community, they don't realize are happening in the room, but if someone next to you tells you, you then have a connection in your brain that helps you
Right.
process sensory information.
Yeah. Particularly when we can't see, we have to have. It's helpful to have somebody who's sighted to tell us what they see or what they feel in this room. So then we say, "Oh, is that what's going on? Is that what I'm
Yes.
feeling?" But not being able to quite distinguish it. The part that I think we're stressing is to be able to say what we're experiencing, or say what uh, what we're confused about, and get some, what are you feeling? And getting that validation and asking. And so often we just react and we
Yes.
don't ask what, don't validate the other person's feelings.
It goes two
And
ways.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. If someone in Colorado or Florida wants to uh, get in touch with you, is there one number, or is there? I know that we will have your information here at Aftersight, and people who want some information can certainly call here. But is there some way that people can contact you directly? Because you do a lot of, obviously, you do a lot of via the phone
Yes, a
or
lot of
via
my
the
sessions.
Zoom.
Yep, a lot of my sessions, all of my sessions are really teletherapy available. And I absolutely do phone call for those who prefer that as well. And the best way to get in touch with me is probably through my website or my email. And my company name is Tides Changing Therapy. TIDES, Changing Therapy, tideschangingtherapy.com. Or you can email me at Samantha at tideschangingtherapy.com. And I'm Tides Changing Therapy on Instagram as well.
Terrific. I really appreciate having you on. I hope we can have you on again.
Thank you,
Because
Bill.
we just really scratched the surface, but when we're talking in general, that's what we have to do. It's kind of give an overview, and you've done a beautiful job of providing that. And what I'm hearing, I think the one thing that I want to repeat just for emphasis, the importance of communicating for somebody, particularly for somebody who's blind, who has a sense something's going on here, to rely on that sense, not be afraid of it, but rely and say, if something feels off here, and ask, what are you feeling now? And we can even, say, because if we're feeling something, somebody else is probably also feeling the same thing. But we need to acknowledge that and let people talk about what it is they're talking about. Then we can go from the emotion somewhat to the intellect in order to make clear what we're feeling. And I think that's an important message that I hope we're providing our listeners.
I think we did. I never thought I'd have so much fun talking about anger. Thank you, Bill.
Well, I am hurt and confused that you're happy to be talking about anger.
Well, I feel proud that we did this, and I feel excited. And thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being on the air. And those of you in the listening who weren't able to write down the information that Samantha gave, we have that contact after site. If you have any questions or any feedback you want to give us, remember feedback at aftersight.org or to call us. And we certainly would be glad to help. Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you.
I know you have another thing coming up immediately, so I have to let you go. But thank you for being on.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
My pleasure.
Take care.
And you take care and get that little 2-year-old to listen to mom on how to talk about emotions, which we didn't get growing up.
I agree. Therapy is in everyone's future. Everyone should have a therapist. Thank you, Bill.
Okay, thank you. And this is Bill Lundgren from Blindsight signing off. Thank you all for listening, and tune in for the next episode.